As usual, in the woods doing some chores. Not much today, just a little bit load of wood for my neighbor. Some green stuff he can burn in his boiler system. So we're gonna get down the road with that. But I'm gonna get back in my truck where it's warm first, because it showed 6 degrees when I pulled in here just now and the wind's blowing. Whew, my nose is cold. I know it's miserable. A lot of the country's having this kind of stuff, so I don't mean to lay claim to it. It's just what we do. Three more days we'll be through it. Chunking a spinnerbait in a snowstorm. I don't think so, but what I was thinking about was Randy Blockett did a video last week on all the shallow bass are gone or leaving, and Chris Johnson followed up with a very interesting video about how the game and fish are putting brush piles in deep water, and he thinks the same thing. And truthfully, I think the same thing also. This is another copycat video. It's just some more thoughts on the subject. I know one thing: the easy fish, the easy good fish, they're gone, or they're harder to catch anyway. Until you get perfect prime conditions, they just don't seem to happen. That's when those fish offshore come in anyway. Always has been that way. I think the deep fish, though, are as much as anything suspended. And I think what's caused that, and the forward-facing sonar guys obviously have that figured out. I think we're as much to blame as anybody. It's not just the technology, although that's made it worse. I don't know doubt in my mind. We spent too many years overcrowding the lakes, running up on those fish with outboard motors and loud trolling motors and banging around, making noise, disturbing them. You know, you take the best white-tailed deer sanctuary in these woods, and say a real thick grove of multi-floor rows and cedars so you can't see through it. Biggest buck on the planet may live in there, but you bother him for a few days, he won't live there no more. He'll leave. And I'm pretty sure bass the same way. They're attuned to everything goes on around them. And I think we've run them off. But Chris made a really good point about the lack of shallow water cover. Now, except for boat docks, which Lake the Ozarks, my home lake down here, 150,000 plus boat docks, that changes things a little bit, but probably not enough. So I was thinking, again, dangerous, I know, thinking about when I first started fishing the reservoirs around here and what the difference is between then and now, and it happened pretty quick. I thought about it over the years. Well, in this subject matter, I'm going to bring it up now. Y'all, Solarbat's got a sale going on again right now, President's Day sale. I'll put a link in the description below. That's what everybody says, don't they? And if you use my promo code, you get free shipping and handling. Please check it out. Super glasses. I'm wearing them on snowy days just like I wear them on sunny days. Excellent. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. The first time I ever fished Lake of the Ozarks was not a tournament. I was 14 years old or so and trying to be a serious bass fisherman. And my youth group from church had a get-together at one of our folks' cabins. First time I ever saw it. Gravois Arm, where I fish now, where I hate so much anymore. Clear water. But the first thing I found out when I was down there chunking a spinnerbait off a bank in 30 foot of water was the milfoil. Big old tall strands of milfoil, and that was not the milfoil part of the lake. That part of the creek wasn't anyway. Some of it come had mats on top, little mats, just but stringers and milfoil. And I got a big fish story that happened that day too. I couldn't believe. Someday I'll tell that one maybe. See, I wonder. But Lake of the Ozarks, the lower lake, the north shore, and the Gravois was choked with milfoil, thanks to Guido Hibden. Guido's one to put it in there. Of course, it was sprayed and messed with, but that's not the only thing that killed it off, which is kind of my subject. So, 1981, I started fishing bass tournaments with the club, and the 4 lakes that we fished the most, Pomme de Terre, Stockton Lake, Truman Reservoir, and Lake of the Ozarks, all had grass to some degree. Truman probably the least. Of course, Truman was he was only 3 years old then. Actually, 2 years old. Lake of the Ozarks had the milfoil on the lower end and had a smartweed. Cut your line. If you hit the line, hit it was razor edge. That's what they always call it with smartweed. Piles of it. Stockton Lake had moss beds and emergent, and I mean just plain old moss, matted up moss, and emergent grasses, pondweed type stuff, and some sort of eelgrass looking thing. It grow in clumps. You go there in the middle of summer, hot day, ultra clear water, you drop plastic worm in some of those clumps in 2 foot of water and catch bass. Pomme de terre, same thing. Isolated places of moss and emergent grasses and some milfoil beds, especially some out deeper. I mean, a couple big ones. That big old musk I talked about losing the other day in that jerkbait video come off that milfoil bed. Not no more. Those are done. And I think it really hurt the fishing. What happened to the grass, though, I believe, was Truman Lake. Truman Lake was flooded in the fall of 1979. It filled up quick. But what it did, it changed the dynamics of that whole river system, because Pomme de Terre Lake and Stockton Lake flow into Truman in 2 different directions, and it all goes in Lake the Ozarks. And all of a sudden, instead of having that more steady water flow, it got changed. And water elevations changed. They used to keep Lake the Ozarks at 660. Now they keep it at 659. Although they're talking about going higher flood pools, got all kinds of people shook up. I think the fluctuating water makes it hard for grass to grow, don't you think? And by 1985, it's hard to find a grass bed. The last milfoil bed I ever saw in Lake the Ozarks was 93 of any size, and people couldn't believe it was there. It just kind of showed up. I caught a 6-pound bass out of another little patch of milfoil that year. That was the end of it. No more. I think it really hurt us. We have no grass in our lakes at all. And Lake the Ozarks used to have 2 lily pad fields. Now it's just got one. I haven't seen it in years. It's still there, I think. I think it's actually bigger, but just foot-deep lily pads. Nothing. I blame it on fluctuating water levels, high and low. But the one thing that is a definite change, though, is the shoreline cover in the form of bushes. There's no more overhanging banks anywhere. Erosion's knocked out. Lake the Ozarks used to have, back in the coast, have an overhanging bank and have a 2 or 3 foot cut underneath it from wave action. And between building condos and houses and boat docks and just water erosion, those are gone. They've all caved in. Which then again makes for a weird shaped shoreline. Whatever, it's going to happen anywhere. Button bushes. Wow, the bass I've caught out of button bushes on every lake I've fished. The only lake's got piles of them now. Truman Lake has them, but the water has to be up. It has to be flooded up to be in them. There's not any at normal pool. At the 706 pool, there's not any. Water gets up in them, oh yeah, but they're up higher because water's been high so many times over the years it's planted them. They're up some 20 foot above the lake level. And they survive. I guess there's enough moisture. Man, give me some button bushes. I've got to flip button bushes 2 days last year and caught a couple good bass doing it. Willows. Man, y'all, some of the things I've done over the years flipping willows. Grand Lake. Willows. That was the number one thing on Grand when I first started fishing it in the late 80s. Fish those big old willow flats. Islands of willows just off the bank and like with a ditch coming out. And so, oh my gosh, if it was current, it was no brainer. And you were going to get bit big. No more. And most of that's due to people. They've took them out. They've raped them. It's just horrible. Those little flats don't have no need for anything but willows, and they kick the willows out. It's perfect cover. Lake the Ozarks, button bushes. Not as much with the upper end, and the water's hardly ever in them anymore. And when it is, it's not near long enough for them to stay healthy. They drop the lake level at 1 foot over the years. People don't know that. Used to be 660. Now they keep it at 659 feet. And that 1 foot's all it takes on a button bush. They just ain't there no more. But man, willow trees and button bushes. Oh my. So I think all this started with the introduction of Truman Lake in 1979. That smart grass, smart weed up lake, it takes a certain condition, high water level in the spring to make that stuff start to grow, and we're never high. They don't bring Lake the Ozarks up from winter pool until Memorial Day every year. And last year it didn't even make it. Not quite. They don't fill it up all the way until Memorial Day for all the tourists and all the go-fast boats and jet skiers and, pond maggots. So that smart grass, that smart weed never gets a chance to start. If a lake would stay high in the spring, which it should for a good fish population. I mean, here you go. I said the end of May is when they bring it up every year, the last week of May. Well, what about those fish you're trying to spawn in April? Because they're bringing up incrementally all along. It just screws with it so much. It screws with the habitat. It screws with the poor fish trying to have babies. And it does this, and that's just... Conservation Department tried to stay on that. I think they kind of give up. We're doing okay without taking care of that. But up and down, up and down, up and down. If your ceiling to your house was coming down on you and going back up, you'd be nervous too. Makes it hard for the fish. But anyway, I think fishing pressure is horrible. Forward face sonar makes it worse. But the lack of shallow cover, Chris Johnson brought that up very well, is probably as much a reason for no shallow fish or harder shallow fish to catch than what used to be. Lake of the Ozarks has all those docks, and some of them are pretty shallow, and I still catch bass around them. Of course, still not like you. And nobody puts brush piles around them like they used to. There are some good brush piles like the Ozarks, but it used to be, you go into a creek, there'd be 25 docks in the creek, and half of them would have brush piles because people fished. Now you go in that same creek, there's 200 docks, and one of them might have a good brush pile that you can reach. I don't know, guys. Nobody cares. The multiple people that use our lakes are not fishermen. They're recreational folks, especially like the Ozarks, where they have big old huge mansions and monster docks with 5 boat slips and $1 million worth of boats or more. Man, I love flipping in that button bush and a willow tree and pitching in the grass. I guess those days are probably gone for good. Oh well, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to expound upon what Chris and Randy said and something I've been thinking about. It's such a beautiful day in the Ozark woods. Still supposed to snow a bunch more. We got maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches. I'm going to get this wood hauled to my neighbor. He's a good old boy. They're customers of mine. Live about 6 miles north. I haven't cut him enough wood this year, and I cut this one down today. It's perfect for him. He can burn it. I can't. So I'm going to haul it to him and go back to the house. And I've been making some baits. I'll try to put a picture right here. I made these baits yesterday and this morning. You do that too. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching. Sorry about link in the description. I got to go. I got to go face some more of that. Woohoo! Spinner baits in a February snowstorm. Wonder if that would work.